What if living under a false identity for your own safety became a prison worse than any physical threat? What if the protection meant to save your life slowly killed everything that made life worth living? Ellen DeGeneres was about to meet someone facing exactly that impossible choice, because sometimes the greatest danger isn't from the people you're hiding from, it's from losing yourself completely in the process of staying hidden. The studio lights gleamed as cameras rolled on what appeared to be another routine interview. Ellen was smiling, the audience was engaged, and her guest seemed composed despite an underlying tension that suggested this conversation would venture into uncharted territory. "I came here today to tell the truth," her guest would soon say, her voice trembling with both fear and determination. "Even if it means my life will never be safe again." And in that moment, Ellen would realize she was about to witness someone make the most dangerous decision of their life, live on television. Because sometimes the choice between safety and authenticity isn't really a choice at all. Ellen DeGeneres had interviewed countless guests over her decades-long career, from celebrities sharing career milestones to everyday heroes overcoming personal challenges, but nothing could have prepared her for the afternoon, when what seemed like a routine conversation about starting over after trauma would evolve into one of the most ethically complex and emotionally charged situations of her hosting experience. What started as a story about resilience became a real-time confrontation with the devastating cost of living a lie, even when that lie was meant to preserve life itself. It was a somber Tuesday afternoon at the Ellen Studios, and the atmosphere carried an unusual weight as they prepared for what was scheduled to be a thoughtful episode about healing from violent crime and rebuilding trust in the world. Ellen, wearing a muted gray blazer over navy pants, was looking forward to interviewing Maria Santos, a 38-year-old woman whose story of surviving a brutal attack and creating a support network for other crime victims had been featured in several advocacy publications. Maria's story, as initially presented to the production team, was exactly the kind of inspiring narrative that Ellen loved to feature, someone who had transformed a horrific experience into a force for helping others heal from similar trauma. According to her preliminary materials, Maria had survived a random violent assault 3 years earlier, had struggled with PTSD and trust issues, and had ultimately channeled her recovery into founding a non-profit organization that provided counseling and legal advocacy for crime victims. Our next guest survived a violent crime that could have destroyed her spirit, but instead she chose to turn her pain into purpose, Ellen announced to the attentive studio audience. She's created a network that has helped over 200 crime victims navigate their recovery and rebuild their lives. Her story proves that even in our darkest moments we can find ways to create light for others. Please welcome Maria Santos. The audience offered warm, supportive applause as Maria walked onto the stage with careful, measured steps. She was a woman of medium height with dark hair pulled back severely and wearing a simple black dress that seemed chosen to avoid attracting attention. What struck Ellen most was the way Maria's eyes constantly scanned the studio, not with the excitement of someone meeting their idol, but with the vigilance of someone perpetually assessing for threats. "Maria, welcome to the show," Ellen said warmly as they embraced briefly. Ellen noticed that Maria's body was tense, almost rigid, during their greeting. "Thank you for having me, Ellen. This is important," Maria replied, her voice carrying an intensity that suggested this interview meant more to her than typical promotional appearances. "Tell us about your organization and the work you're doing with crime victims." Maria's expression softened slightly as she began discussing her advocacy work. The Santos Foundation focuses on providing immediate support to people who've experienced violent crimes. We help with everything from legal advocacy to therapy referrals to practical assistance like temporary housing or transportation to court hearings. That sounds like incredibly important work. What inspired you to start this foundation? Maria paused and Ellen noticed her hands beginning to tremble slightly. Well, that's actually a complicated question, Ellen. The inspiration came from my own experience, but the story I've been telling about that experience, it's not completely accurate. Ellen felt a familiar chill of alertness that came when an interview was about to take an unexpected direction. "What do you mean, Maria?" Maria looked around the studio again, her scanning behavior becoming more pronounced. "Ellen, I need to tell you something that I've never told anyone publicly, something that could put my life in danger just by saying it out loud. Maria, if you're not comfortable sharing something, you don't have to. But I do have to, Maria said, her voice growing stronger with determination. Ellen, I've been living under federal witness protection for 8 years. My real name isn't Maria Santos. The crime I survived wasn't random, and the foundation I started, it's my way of trying to find meaning while living a completely fabricated life. The studio fell completely silent as the audience absorbed the gravity of what Maria was revealing. Ellen felt her heart rate spike as she realized the potential implications of what was being disclosed on live television. Maria, are you saying you're in witness protection right now? I was, Maria replied, emphasizing the past tense. Ellen, I made the decision to leave the program and reclaim my real identity, regardless of the consequences. I can't live this lie anymore. Ellen felt overwhelmed by the complexity and danger of the situation unfolding before her. Maria, what was the crime you witnessed? What are you protected from? Maria took a deep breath, clearly steeling herself for what she was about to reveal. 8 years ago, I witnessed the murder of a federal judge by members of an organized crime syndicate. I was working as a court reporter, and I happened to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. My testimony was crucial in convicting 3 high-ranking members of the organization. And you've been in hiding ever since, Maria confirmed. The U.S. Marshals gave me a new identity, relocated me across the country, and I've been living as Maria Santos, a crime victim advocate for 8 years. But Ellen, it's killing me slowly. Ellen leaned forward, trying to understand the depth of Maria's struggle. What do you mean it's killing you? I mean, I've lost everything that made me who I am, Maria said, tears beginning to form in her eyes. My real name is Catherine Walsh. I have a daughter named Emma who was 12 when I went into protection. She's 20 now, and she thinks I'm dead. I have parents who buried an empty coffin because they were told I died in a car accident. Ellen felt her heart breaking as she listened to the scope of sacrifice Maria had endured. Maria, Catherine, you haven't had any contact with your family in 8 years. None. 0. Catherine Walsh had to die completely for Maria Santos to exist safely. I've missed my daughter's graduation, her first heartbreak, her acceptance to college. I've missed my father's battle with cancer and my mother's remarriage to a wonderful man I'll never meet. This must be incredibly isolating. Ellen, I started the foundation because I needed to do something meaningful with this fake life I was given. But every day I help real crime victims reconnect with their families and rebuild their identities. I'm reminded that I can't do either of those things for myself. Ellen turned to address the cameras directly. Folks, I need to pause here and acknowledge that what we're hearing is unprecedented. Maria is revealing information that could potentially put her in danger. She looked back at Maria with deep concern. Maria, why are you choosing to reveal this now, on national television? Because I've reached the point where the protection is worse than the threat, Maria said with conviction. Ellen, I'm 38 years old. I've spent 8 years of my life, what should have been some of my best years, living as a ghost. I can't form real relationships because they're all built on lies. I can't pursue the career I love because Catherine Walsh was a court reporter, not an advocate. I can't even grieve properly for the life I lost because I have to pretend to be grateful for this new one. Ellen felt the weight of Maria's dilemma settling over the studio. What do the federal marshals say about your decision to leave protection? They think I'm making a fatal mistake, Maria admitted. They've warned me that members of the crime family I testified against are still active, that revealing my identity and location makes me a target again. Are you prepared for that risk? Maria's expression became resolute. Ellen, I'd rather live 6 months as Catherine Walsh than 6 more years as Maria Santos. I'd rather face a physical threat as my real self than continue to die emotionally as this fabricated person. Ellen struggled with how to respond to such a complex and dangerous situation. Maria, what about your daughter? Your family? Won't revealing your identity put them at risk too? That's the hardest part, Maria said, her voice breaking. The marshals told me that if I break cover, I can never contact my family because it could expose them to danger. So I'm choosing between continuing to be dead to them forever or being alive but having to stay away from them forever. Ellen felt angry at the impossible choice Maria had been forced to make. That seems unconscionably cruel. It is cruel, Maria agreed. But Ellen, at least if I'm living as Catherine Walsh, my daughter might someday see me on television or read about me in the news. At least she'll know her mother is alive and fighting for justice. Right now she thinks I abandoned her by dying. Ellen turned to the audience, many of whom were wiping tears from their eyes. Maria, what do you need right now? How can we support you in this incredibly difficult transition? I need people to understand that witness protection, while necessary, comes at a cost that most people can't imagine, Maria said. I need the system to find better ways to protect witnesses without completely erasing their identities. And personally, I need help reconnecting with my real life while staying as safe as possible. Ellen made a decision that felt both necessary and terrifying. Maria, I want to help you, but I also want to make sure you're safe. Would you be willing to work with security experts to assess the current level of threat and develop a safety plan? Yes, Maria said immediately. Ellen, I know I'm taking a huge risk, but I've been dead for 8 years. If I die now, at least I'll die as myself. Ellen addressed the cameras with unprecedented gravity. Folks, what we've witnessed today is someone making one of the most courageous and dangerous decisions imaginable. Maria has chosen authenticity over safety, connection over protection. She looked back at Maria. What would you want to say to your daughter Emma, in case she's watching? Maria looked directly into the camera, tears streaming down her face. Emma, this is your mom, your real mom, Catherine Walsh. I didn't die in a car accident, baby. I had to disappear to keep you safe, and I've been thinking about you every single day for 8 years. I'm sorry I missed so much of your life. I'm sorry you thought I left you. I love you more than life itself, and even though I can't be with you right now, I need you to know that your mother is alive and fighting to make the world safer for people like us. The studio was completely silent except for the sound of muffled sobs from the audience. Ellen wiped tears from her own eyes as she witnessed this unprecedented moment of television. 3 months later, Ellen received an update that was both hopeful and heartbreaking. Maria had successfully transitioned back to living as Catherine Walsh and had reconnected with her work in the legal system as an advocate for court reform. However, she remained unable to contact her family directly due to ongoing security concerns. The episode sparked national conversations about witness protection policies, the psychological cost of living under false identities, and the need for more humane approaches to protecting people who risk their lives to seek justice. What Catherine taught us that day, Ellen reflected months later, is that sometimes survival isn't enough. Sometimes we need more than just being alive. We need to be able to live as ourselves, even if it's dangerous. 6 months after the original episode, Ellen received a letter that brought tears to her eyes. It was from Emma Walsh, Catherine's daughter, who had indeed been watching the show. Dear Ellen, the letter read, "Thank you for giving my mom the platform to tell me she's alive. I always felt like she wasn't really gone, and now I know why. I can't contact her directly, but I need her to know that I understand, I forgive her, and I'm proud of her courage. Tell her that her daughter is studying criminal justice because of her, and that someday I hope we can work together to fix the system that kept us apart." Ellen kept that letter on her desk as a reminder that sometimes the most dangerous truths are also the most necessary ones, and that courage isn't the absence of fear, it's choosing authenticity despite being terrified of the consequences. Because sometimes the greatest prison isn't built with bars and walls but with false names and fabricated histories. And sometimes the most dangerous thing you can do is also the most human thing, choosing to live as yourself, regardless of the cost.